Hi, and welcome everybody. My name is Ayana Besson, and I'm a doctoral student at SUNY Downstate School of Public Health, and I'm also the research manager for Plant Power Metro New York's 21-day Plant Power Jumpstart for Brooklyn's Black community leaders. We are so pleased to bring you to this event today in honor of Black History Month and inclusive of the many participants and mentors who are a part of the Jumpstart cohort. Please take a couple of moments to introduce yourselves in the chat box and tell us where you're tuning in from. So we'll just take a couple of moments just to do that. Well, all the jump starters, if you don't mind just also putting that where you're from and what position you hold into the chat box. So I see Nassau County. I see people tuning in from Manhattan, from Brooklyn, DC. Oh, this is awesome. Keep it coming. Schenectady. Oh, Vegas, awesome. All right, so let's get into it. As you know, soul food has major cultural significance for African American communities, but can also contribute to health disparities. And so as our traditional dishes, like, during Thanksgiving, that baked macaroni and cheese and those collard greens with the ham hocks and turkey neck bones, traditional dishes that we love, but it has animal foods and oils and additives that increase the risk of chronic diseases, so like heart disease and diabetes and more. And so the mission of Plant Powered Metro New York is to empower people of all cultural backgrounds to find better health and overcome chronic disease through whole food plant-based nutrition, which centers largely around unprocessed whole foods for health and healing. So we're talking about our whole grains, our legumes, our nuts, and our seeds, and our vegetables. Today's soul food dishes have been reimagined for your health, and they will demonstrate how you can naturally enhance flavor in whole food plant-based kitchen, because taste is important. You should have received the link to access these recipes when you had registered. In the event that you didn't, a link should be put in the chat box right now so you could follow the recipes as Chef Brandy is going through.
I've put the link in the chat.
Awesome. You should have access to that. And so let's head into the kitchen with our very own chef, Brandy Cochrane, who was our 21-day Jumpstart culinary educator. And just as a little bit of background about her is that she is the founder of Entrepreneur Meal Plan, which provides space for leaders to connect, share resources, and have real talk about what it means to be well-rounded business people. She's combined her passion and experience as a creative strategist and plant-based chef to help over 150 creative professionals and entrepreneurs develop ideas, find simple, affordable resources, and to take the guesswork out of eating simple, nutritious, and delicious food. She's also the co-founder of Plant Candy, a company that focuses on helping families and communities find simple, affordable ways to add more fruits and veggies and whole grains to their diets and enjoy them. Brandy is also passionate about protecting the environment. She has been featured in the New York Times, the New York Daily News, and other publications for her community beautification work. And so with that being said, Chef Brandy, you can take it away.
Everybody, good Saturday afternoon. I hope everybody is excited to dig into this concept of soul food that still has the soul, but not as much as the sodium and the things that cause us to experience so many of the things that we do as African Americans. So today, the dish that we're going to make it covers a couple of areas. So it covers flavor building, it covers playing around with textures in a plant-based space. It also covers changing a creamy dairy substance into something that is not creamy and dairy. And then we explore how we can use something like a collard green as a low carb alternative to like a wrap. So we're gonna make a barbecue jackfruit coleslaw filled collard green burrito. So if you're excited about that, let's type in the chat. Let's go. And I'm going to move over to the kitchen and get started so we can get as much covered in the time that we have together. Always feel free to ask questions during the time that I'm cooking. I like to infuse different tips and strategies, and I know a bunch of random things to help us make sure that we can stay committed to this lifestyle and not sacrifice flavor during the process. So I'll see you in a minute at the kitchen.
In the meantime, I see a couple of people with aprons on. Who's cooking with us? Oh, yes, Ava. Awesome.
We're going to get started. Now, this is a dish. This is a dish that has a couple of components. So there's going to be stuff happening behind me, and I'm going to talk through it as I like put stuff in a pan as a stove that's behind me. I want to focus really on the cutting board and talking through how we build flavors, just so you can get some strategies to make cooking this way a lot easier. So the basis of this recipe is going to be this peppers, onions, the jackfruit, and a barbecue sauce that I made beforehand. Now this barbecue sauce will come into play a little later, but it consists of onions, garlic, tomatoes, couple of vinegars, and I'll talk through why I chose these ingredients. So when we're thinking about barbecue sauce, what's something that we like about barbecue sauce? You like the tang, you like the sweet, and you like the heat. Now, a lot of times how we get those things in to our dishes usually consist of things that aren't that great for us. So we're talking about sugar. Typically, it's going to put a brown sugar into a barbecue sauce, but you can find that sweet note from something like a date, right? Also pineapple, if you don't have a pineapple allergy. I did a barbecue sauce that was pineapple based, but then I had a couple of friends, surprisingly enough, who had pineapple allergy, so I swapped it over to dates, and that was enough sweetness to kind of make it work. What's interesting though about dates is that they may be attached to fiber, and they are a natural sugar. They are pretty nutrient dense. So calorie dense. So what I would recommend when you're using dates, a lot of times in recipes, especially this barbecue sauce, I literally just cooked the barbecue sauce with the dates, and I didn't need to blend them down with it at the end, and it was sweet enough. So that's just something that you could think about as you're going through this. Now, right now, I'm cutting up some jalapenos, as you saw. I'm cutting these up because I want my jackfruit, barbecue jackfruit, to have a little bit of heat. I like heat. So jalapenos and cayenne pepper are a great way to infuse some heat into your food. The seeds in the jalapenos is really what really like where the heat lives. So if you don't want to like kill your tongue in the process, I would recommend taking the seeds out, just using the jalapeno pepper, seeing if that's good enough as far as the heat level that you're looking to get. And then if you wanted to add some of the seeds in later, like down the line when you're cooking things down, that's an option to kind of kick the heat up. So onions are a great way to add flavor to a meal, but onions sometimes have a bad rap because they tend to make us cry, right? So I like to help you find the most efficient way to cut into an onion. So I always love to do the onion demonstration. This is the top of your onion. This is the bottom of your onion. That's going to be the case with whatever type of onion that you're using. Now, in this case, I'm using this is a sweet onion. There's a sweet onion. There's yellow onion. There's white onion. There's red onion. All those onions add flavor to your food in different ways. So say, for instance, your sweet onion makes things a little sweeter, right? The red onion, I personally like that onion best if I'm going to use it raw. And it adds a different like complexity and dimension to your meal. The yellow onion is a little more, I would say, basic in like the onion world, but that too adds flavor. So I'm talking through these different types of onion as you explore the idea of incorporating more plant-based foods into your life, because playing around with these different fruits, vegetables, grains, herbs is really going to help you get different complexities and layers of flavor into your mouth. Now, you saw with this onion, right? I cut it from top to bottom. The reason I did this was because this bottom piece acts as the guide that holds the onion together when you start to cut it. Now, pro tip regarding onions. If you are planning to use your onion for raw preparation, you want to cut from front to back. This is how you cut an onion for raw preparation, so you don't end up having that strong onion taste that sometimes is a little unappealing. And if you're going to saute your onion, you're going to cut it from left to right. So that's just something too to think about. There are different techniques in food with how you cut them and prepare them that changes the taste. And that's just one thing about onions to think about. So if you were going to put an onion into a salad, you're going to cut it from front to back. If you're going to saute it in a pan, you're going to cut it from left to right. Now, what I just did was cut lines into these onions. Now, these lines are going to be the way that I end up getting these even chunks of onion to put into the dish. Now, if you want a bigger onion piece chunk, you cut less lines. If you want a smaller, you cut more. You cut these same lines that you do up the onion as you do down the onion, and then you turn and you cut. This makes cutting onions like so much easier than how we tend to cut onions and cry and hold them in our hand, and it becomes a whole presentation that it doesn't necessarily have to be. So I'm hoping that this onion cutting strategy really helps make the preparation, which is the most probably brutal part of cooking, to be honest, a little easier for you. So just like that, we have all these nice evenly cut onions, and sometimes there's a stray or two in the back that you need to just go in and kind of support a little and breaking itself down. And so there you have that. Right now we're going to learn how to cut a pepper. Another thing that we don't cut as practically in the kitchen. So a lot of times when we're cutting a pepper, we cut a pepper from up and down, which is cool. Like that works too. But a more effective way to cut a pepper is to cut your top of your pepper off and to cut the bottom of your pepper off, right? Then to cut right here and then like just cut a piece inside and just go inside and remove that core piece, right? That leaves you with this even pepper piece or strip that you can cut into more like even pieces and control like the size and shape. So I am going to cut these up. And like I say, in cooking preparation, your lines are your friends. It's sometimes like retraining yourself to use this line technique can be a little like weird because it's not necessarily, at least it wasn't how I grew up. It wasn't how I grew up at all. I grew up holding vegetables in my hand and just like, cutting them into the pot. So when you learn these little techniques, it just makes getting these vegetables broken down so much faster. So it's the onion, and I'm going to throw the onions into the pan before I cut the red pepper, just so they can start to cook down. Now in this situation, I'm using a sweet onion. I personally like a more sweet, like sweet and spicy kind of barbecue process, like barbecue experience. So the sweet onion is the onion that I go with in this situation. If you wanted something that was a little more savory and tangy, I'd probably say go with a yellow or a white onion, and you would kick up the vinegar note inside of the sauce or the final product, depending on how you did it. And this one's a little longer than the other one. I'm only going to use half of this one though. This is kind of big. Now also we're thinking about flavor. Vinegar. Vinegar is a flavor that comes up a lot, especially in soul food when we're talking about that tang that we're looking for in like your greens or like especially in like your barbecues and things like that. But vinegar also has another use in the like in cooking. So especially in the plant-based space when you're trying to eliminate or limit your salt, vinegar is a good tool for that. And it's actually acid. So you can get that same salty kind of experience with a lime. I'd like a lime a little over a lemon, and then vinegar, and then think about all the different types of vinegar. So a lot of times white vinegar, apple cider vinegar comes to mind, right? But there are so many different types of vinegar. Like balsamic vinegar is something that we don't necessarily think of a lot outside of salads, but it's a great thing to add a savory note and actually kick up a sweet note in a dish. It's in one of the ingredients in the barbecue sauce is balsamic vinegar, to kind of play around with the fact that there's no brown sugar added to this particular dish. Also, white balsamic vinegar. White balsamic vinegar is not something that a lot of people use. I know I didn't even know about white balsamic until I was really trying to figure out ways to just explore how I can build different complexities and flavors into a dish. And white balsamic is a kind of a game changer. So I would highly recommend adding that to your repertoire of building flavor. It gives a sweetness to a dish and also like a tanginess. So it's really cool to finish with your vegetables, to add into a grain to give it some additional flavor, because sometimes, you know, grains, especially if you're not adding salt, butter, and oils to them, vinegars and different spices and herbs are a way for you to add flavor. Speaking of herbs, right? That's a whole other thing. Now, dried herbs are good, right? They help add different flavor to grains. They help add different flavor to dressing. They help add different flavors to dishes. But the fresh ones really take the flavor up another notch. So I would highly recommend, if you're looking to, like I say, build these new flavor profiles, reimagine like how you use a basil, reimagine how you use a rosemary, a thyme, and start to put them in dishes in different ways. Like something like adding thyme, a little bit of thyme and like garlic to like your rice or like your quinoa. That little subtlety really takes it up a notch. And then you finish it off with some vinegar. It totally just changes your experience with that dish. So that's something that I want to challenge you. Now behind me, I have this little medley of ingredients cooking down. I'm going to cook down just a little bit more before I add in the jackfruit. Now I want to talk through jackfruit a little bit. So this is jackfruit, right? This was jackfruit from a can, opened it up, drained it, rinsed it off, and broke it up a little bit. Now, when you are picking jackfruit, what you want to do, especially if you're looking for the use of jackfruit in a meaty kind of sense, you want to make sure you're getting something called a young or unripened jackfruit. Okay. Now, jackfruit is a fruit. So as fruits mature, they get sweeter. So we don't want to get the sweet version of jackfruit because it's not going to give you that savory meatiness that we're looking for when we are trying to build the flavor profile into the texture of a fruit or grain that is similar to a meat that we're after, right? Now, there's a lot of debate around jackfruit. Should you eat the core? Should you only eat the flesh? Should you take out these little eye things, or like seeds? I guess technically they look like eyes if you see them all together. I literally take the can, dump it out, drain it, rinse it, and eat all of it. And you just break it up accordingly. So I say don't waste any bit of this, put it in there. And what's cool about jackfruit, and I'm gonna throw it behind me in this pot now. What's cool about jackfruit is that all of those different pieces, like the piece that looks like an eye, which is the seed, the core that is a little harder than the actual, I'm gonna try to find a piece and bring it back over. The flesh that's a little like stringy, that looks really like literally like shredded pork or shredded chicken, is that collectively they mimic what a piece of meat would have in it, right? So when you're eating, like when you're biting into a piece of chicken, there's different textures depending on where you are on the bone. There's like that little bristle piece, there's the fleshy piece, there different like bites and stuff like that, right? So using all of those pieces help you to create that. Now what I'm going to do is spice this up, because I'm actually going to move over and show you this. I'm going to move the pot over and show you the spicing process, because you can't say you don't like vegetables and you don't like plant-based food if you don't use spices, right? A lot of times we think of foods as sides, right? We think of foods as sides and vegetables. We think of vegetables and grains as sides. And so we don't give it the same type of love that we give like the main dishes, which are like our meats and stuff. The same way you would season chicken in this situation, or pork, because usually, well, sometimes it's barbecue pork, sometimes it's barbecue chicken. But the same way you would season that, you would apply the same concept here, the same concept. So there is no need to eat food that does not have flavor. Like literally, there's no need. Use your spices, play around with things. And just because you can't use salt doesn't mean you can't have flavor. Now, salt's a big, like a big kind of challenge. And onion powder is a really good way to kind of give you salt without salt. I'm going to talk through the seasonings that I just threw in here, right? And the recipe is in this, but there's onion powder, there's smoked paprika. I used some cayenne pepper. There was some garlic powder. There was some pepper flakes. And I'm going to use a little bit of liquid smoke, which is a flavor profile that we like a lot in soul food. Liquid smoke is deceptive. It smells amazing. Like, oh, it smells like the barbecue. And you feel like you're going to want to put a ton of it in your dish. Do not give in to the urge. You will not be happy with an overly artificial smoked flavor. It does not. It's kind of like vanilla, how vanilla smells, vanilla extract smells amazing. But if you just eat it by itself, not so much. Same concept here. So I'm going to let this cook down just a little bit before I dump the barbecue sauce in to kind of bring it all together. And while I'm waiting for that to happen, what I'm going to do is make a little bit of coleslaw. Okay, so I'm going to put coleslaw into this dish again. So just literally have some washed coleslaw leaves right here that I'm going to just roll and chop up. So we got. And now if you have, what do you call it? If there's a coleslaw mix that exists in the store already, you could totally just use that. Make sure that the ingredients just say, chopped cabbage and carrots. I just happen to have a whole cabbage in here. So I'm using from my pantry, but sometimes, the beauty of having things in a house that are kind of already prepared for you or prepped for you, it makes it a lot easier for you to stick to your commitment to explore this stuff. So just chopping this up and chop it up. One more time. And get it in this bowl. Now, I'm so excited. So I got a produce box from a company called Misfits Market. Misfits Market is a company that sells organic produce that has kind of been rejected by like the food system, but it's pretty cool. Like these organic carrots might be a little small, but they're still super yummy, and they're great for something like this coleslaw that we're making right now. And what made me even more excited when these things showed up was that it still had the greens attached to it. Now, that is one thing that a lot of times we don't have privy to, these yummy, nutritious greens that come not only on our carrots, but also on our beets. So if you have an opportunity to have beet greens or carrot tops, don't cut them off and throw them away. Highly recommend using them in some way or shape or form in your dishes. Now, just a little bit of fun health benefits to these carrot tops. These carrot tops are full of chlorophyll, of course. They're green, a lot of chlorophyll, potassium, an excellent detoxifier for your kidneys. They have a ton of vitamin K and a good source of vitamin A. So just think about all of that goodness that we're just throwing away. When you literally can just chop these up, you can stir these into a grain. You can stir these into a salad. That's how I like to do with my these carrot tops, and I've also turned carrot tops into a carrot top pesto, where instead of basil, I use like these carrot top leaves in the dish to kind of make it work. In this situation, I'm going to throw them into my coleslaw because, hey, why not? And if you're wondering what they taste like, they're herby. They have a very herby, herbaceous flavor, just like any herb would be. And I would say they're not super sweet, and they're closer. They're not super sweet. They're pretty salty, honestly. So they kind of remind me of like celery and parsley had a baby. Which is weird coming from a carrot, which is sweet, but that's literally what the tops taste like. I would say celery and parsley had a baby. So now I'm just literally just shredding up these carrots into this coleslaw mix. Yet again, if you happen to, have some shredded carrots to make your life easier, they cost more, but they definitely are more convenient. And sometimes convenience wins when you're trying to stay consistent. So don't ever feel like you're not a real cook or you're not doing it right because you're not, breaking down cabbage heads all day or shredding, carrots from scratch. At the end of the day, the goal is just to feed ourselves with the most nutritious foods possible. So don't judge yourself if you don't have like this perfect mix. Like personally, I eat beans from a can. I drain them, get salt-free beans, but I'm not always making fresh beans because my life doesn't always allow for that experience, and that's totally okay. So this is coleslaw. Really, really simple. Carrot greens, shredded carrots. Mix this up. All right. I'm gonna finish this one off. Now what I'm going to do is make a tahini dressing to bring this all together. So traditionally in a coleslaw, you're going to be using, I think it's mayonnaise maybe. I think mayonnaise is the base of this, this dish. I personally was never really like a soggy coleslaw person. So it wasn't like, if it was juicy, really juicy and like wet, I wasn't really into it. So the thing that really opened me up to even exploring coleslaw was when I started playing around with Asian flavors. So I had made a half red cabbage, half yellow cabbage, carrot, and scallion peanut butter, like something like a peanut butter ginger kind of sauce instead of that like mayonnaise wet thing. And it was just like, oh, this kind of could work. And so when I came back to it, I ended up using tahini as the cream based sauce, and it worked for me. So I'm going to show you how to make a fun creamy tahini sauce. Tahini is a base in sesame seeds. And before I get there, I'm just going to check on the jackfruit, right? So we're going to throw in this barbecue sauce now. Barbecue sauce that was made onions, tomato sauce, just plain tomato sauce, onions, garlic, some balsamic vinegar, some apple cider vinegar, a little bit of molasses, some dates, and smoked paprika, garlic, onion powder, a little bit of liquid smoke, cooked down, and then put into the blender. And then we get this end result that is pretty freaking tasty. The first time I made it, I was literally like, oh wow, I'm gonna be able to have barbecue sauce and it's not going to, like, I'm gonna enjoy it. Like I said, originally I made this recipe with pineapples. That was the original recipe. So sometimes if, say for instance, you don't have dates or you just don't want dates and you're not allergic to pineapples works great as a sweetness replacement. And talking about sweetness, which is a note that we're always kind of after in food. Like, I know people might be saying, oh, fruit, I'm not going to sell you as like, oh, if you want a piece of cake, like, just eat an apple, it's going to cure it. That's not what I'm here to sell you. That's not going to work. But what I will say is that you can gather a lot of sweetness from fruit. So like pineapples, we talked about dates, we talk about applesauce. Like applesauce is surprisingly sweet in a dish, carrots, and roasted sweet potatoes. Roasted sweet potatoes, you can make a sweet potato pie with roasted sweet potatoes with no added sugar. Because if you let those sweet potatoes roast enough, remember that roasting process brings the sugars to the top. So like when I make my sweet potato pie during holiday season, just really don't boil the sweet potato, roast it, and you can literally make a sweet potato pie just leveraging that. So now this is just a little bit of tahini. I'm gonna add some filtered water into it because just like peanut butter, tahini is a seed, right? And you know, if you ever bought natural peanut butter, it separates. The oils will separate from the top. What I do as somebody who tries to eliminate oil from my diet as much as possible, I just pour it off. So sometimes it makes it a little stiff, but you can literally just loosen it up with a little bit of water. So that's what we're doing here. It takes a little bit of time, but you know, you're already committed to the lifestyle. So you've already told yourself that you're worth it. So an extra 3 to 5 minutes of integrating water into some type of nut or seed butter seems, you know, par for the course. So, you know, and now you could totally do this in a blender and not have to worry about it like falling all over the cutting board. So it'll be a lot faster and cleaner. But in this case, I'd rather just kind of do it in the bowl so you guys can see. If you don't want to dirty up a blender or you don't have a blender, you can still kind of do it. So as you see, this is breaking down. You see this water kind of turning more and more like a mayonnaise sauce. And continue to break this down. And it's honestly, it's very meditative. This whole act of smashing seed butter into water, very gently breathing, pushing it. You get to the point where it kind of gives a little, and then you can start to stir it and makes it a little easier. Kind of getting there. And once we get there, once we get this base, then we'll start to add in a couple more flavors. Now you can do the same thing with peanut butter. So if you're making a peanut butter sauce, you can do that. Now, I do know that, you know, nuts and seeds are something that we want to use sparingly on a plant-based diet, because though they are they're natural, they are high in fat. So we don't want to have them, you know, often, but sometimes we add them to a dish, especially they're very present in like Thai cooking and Asian dishes. So something. All right. So we got our good creamy tahini. It's broken down enough for me to start stirring it and not falling all over the cutting board. All right. Bam, integration's happening. Beautiful, beautiful. So this is the consistency that we are looking for. And on this dressing, you can, like I said, you can make it like, it's going to be the dressing for this coleslaw. You can also make it a dressing for a salad. I'm going to put some apple cider vinegar. I'm going to put some lemon in here. I'm going to add some garlic, and I'm going to add some Dijon mustard to this one. And this is going to be my dressing for this particular dish. So now, why did I pick those flavors, right? So apple cider vinegar gives you a sweetness and it gives you a tang, right? Dijon mustard gives you like a creaminess and like a saltiness. And funny enough, it also is like a kind of a low level heat. If you ever just had plain mustard seed, it could be pretty spicy. So something to think about when you're doing it. But it has more of a salty flavor when it comes together, even though if you look at like the ingredients in most mustard, it's literally just like mustard seed, vinegar. Generally, that's it. Also not adding just some garlic powder. Not like garlic. So that's another thing. Ultimately, you have to eat this food. So make it taste good. Recipes are just guidelines. They are starting points. They're your base. They're the things that help you to be able to build on. So don't get stuck in the recipe. You know, say for instance, you don't like collard greens or something like that, right? And you happen to like kale, like use that recipe with kale instead of collard greens. If the recipe calls for garlic and you don't like garlic, don't put garlic in there. Just make sure whatever you're doing, you create it so that you enjoy it and you have fun. Because that is the ultimate way that we stay committed to this. Like it has to be like a game. For me, every time I'm thinking about imagining a dish, it's like fun. It becomes like a science project where you're trying to go, what flavor profile, like what things can I put together to create a flavor profile, and then what vegetable has the texture that I'm after. And if you think about it like that, you can really have fun as you explore this lifestyle. So now I'm adding this dressing to the coleslaw and mix it up a bit. Like I say, I'm not a big like super like wet person, so I'll just do a little bit at a time and see how it comes together, and then add a little bit more. If you happen to be a more wet person, go nuts. Like I said, the goal is to create food that you actually want to eat, because if you don't want to eat it, you're not going to stick to it. But don't let that be an excuse for you not to try. Like a lot of times the foods that you like, they taste really good because you made them over and over and over again, right? You have the process, you have these secret ingredients, you got all this stuff that you've done for years. A lot of recipes, honestly, you didn't even make. They like came from somebody else. They came from like your grandmother, they came from your mom. They already existed, and maybe you put a little twist on them. So as you explore this lifestyle, you want to kind of think about you being at ground zero in the recipe development department. So it's like you're the person who's going to recreate that recipe that's going to be passed down to the next generations. And those recipes that you have access to, they've been in circulation for a couple of generations. So don't hold yourself, like, don't be so, don't beat yourself up if you make a dish that kind of sucks the first time around or isn't amazing, because remember, like, the consistency and the continuing to do it is what's going to help it come together. So this is the coleslaw. Going to sit it behind me, and then we are going to blanch the good old collard green leaf so that we can build our burritos. So collard greens are like a staple and I feel like African American culture. We have them a lot of times. They are seasoned with smoked turkey neck, fat back, pork shoulder, and all kinds of fun stuff like that. But like I always tell people, when they have collard greens and they're like, they have meat-free collard greens and they still taste good, it's like, how do you do that? Well, guess what? A lot of times the things that we're after when we're doing, when we're eating, like throwing a piece of meat into a green, we're after the salt and we're after the smoke. And I just showed you liquid smoke as a way to be able to build smoke into a dish. So that's one thing that you want to think about. Liquid smoke is a good alternative. Smoked paprika is also another way that you can get that smoky flavor into the dish without the salt. Vinegar, which is already something that is a part of the just the collard green recipe, a little bit of vinegar. So that helps as well with that interest in exploring the salt. So think about it like that. Also, celery. Celery brings a salty note to a dish too. So when you're taking your broth and you're building your broth, you can put a little bit of onions and celery at the bottom to kind of give it, and peppers as well. Like, it's something about, I don't know what it is exactly, and I'm going to look into this, but I think the heat, like the heat part of your tongue and the salt part of your tongue are close together, because heat is a really good way to eliminate like salt, or to like swap out for salt. So I gotta look into that to confirm, but that's my theory why it works so good together. So behind me, all I did was take this collard green and put it into a hot boiling thing of water, and then I'm placing it into a cold thing of water so that it can stop cooking. This is called the blanching process. For collard greens, it helps to make them more pliable so that when we go to roll them and use them as a burrito skin, they don't fall apart. As you also saw with this process, it kind of brightened this up a little bit. And I would recommend, if you are going to be say freezing some fresh vegetables, this is the process that you take in order to maintain the texture and the flavor in that fresh vegetable, from maintain that fresh vegetable when you take it back out of the freezer. If you just take fresh vegetables and throw them into the freezer, like they'll work, but they don't come out tasting the same. So this is just a little tip. If you happen to like run into a bunch of an ingredient at a good price and you can't pass it up. I don't know, if you find the collard greens for 19 cents a pound and you're like, oh my God, I just got to get these collard greens because I don't think I'm ever going to see them this cheap again. And you have this big batch of them, but you can't eat them all in the same week. Highly recommend taking a little bit of time to blanch them and then freezing them. My grandma used to do this all the time. I don't know if she necessarily, I don't know if she knew it was called blanching, but I do know that this was what we did growing up when we had an excessive amount of greens. And I'm sure she learned that from her mother. So just like I said, these things are passed down from generation, but just think about this when you are, trying to make this lifestyle make sense. All right, so blanched, and you see it has like a brighter color once it comes out of that water, and it's just like slightly cooked, and you throw it into this water. Had ice in it. It's pretty cold. It's kind of melted out a little bit during the presentation, but it helps to just stop the cooking process. Yeah, so that's what it does. Okay, so I'm gonna take these out. I'm gonna dry them, and then we're gonna build these wraps. So I'm gonna do 3, and these are pretty good size. I've totally seen larger size collard green leaves. So if they were a little bigger, I probably would have only used like 1 or 2, maybe even 1. But collard green leaves sometimes that 1 work. So yeah, let's dry them out. And now these collard green leaves, I'm using them for this dish. I'm just gonna stuff them this time with the barbecue jackfruit and the coleslaw, right? But you can literally use this collard green for any type of sandwich. I also do like a traditional burrito with it. So I literally take rice, beans, tomatoes, corn, jalapenos, onions, a little salsa, and put them in. And these batch prep really, really well. So I might, make 2 or 3 or 4, depending on what I have on a Sunday, and then eat from them for the rest of the week. So that's just something to think about. These collard green burritos batch really well. Unlike I feel the corn tortilla ones or the flour ones, because once that wrapping gets wet, it kind of sucks. Like I'm personally not a big fan of like soggy bread, so I lose the appeal. But the collard green base doesn't, it doesn't lose its crispness and it doesn't get soggy. So just a thought process when you're trying to figure out ways to batch cook and make all of this stuff so much easier. All right, so here is the finished barbecue jackfruit. It smells so great. Like I really wish that smell-o-vision was a thing because it really smells so freaking good. So I'm literally just dumping a little bit of it. This has, like I say, barbecue. You can smell the spice. You can smell the tang. There's the peppers in there. There's the onions in there. Now you could add a little bit more moisture to this if you wanted to, and then let it like cook down a whole lot, or you could make it more juicy where it, is a little more like wet and kind of sloppy, which is cool too. I'm just working on quick ways to make this a reality, but we can play around with cooking this down. This goes really well too in a slow cooker. So I've made this in a slow cooker. So this could be something that you add at night, like the night before, and then come and have it like later. So now we got this coleslaw that's gonna go with it. So you got your heat, your sweet, you got a little bit of freshness and creaminess with this. And then you have this raw cauliflower wrap, not cauliflower, wrong ingredient. This collard green wrap to bring it all together. So yeah, now I'm just gonna show you how to wrap this. Really easy. I think these are easier to wrap than a burrito. you wrap it up right here, you fold it in, and then you keep it moving. So we got one. This one's a little runaway. You just tuck it back in, and like at the end of the day, these things don't have to be perfect. They just have to be something that you enjoy. They might tear, you know. It's fine. Your teeth's gonna tear them anyway, so don't stress about those things. Yep, bam. So we got that one, and then I'm gonna do the third one. I'm going to plate them up, and you're just folding in the leaf and rolling it. It's pretty simple. Let me grab a plate. So you got your nice little collard green burrito and what is this? Barbecue jackfruit wrap that, like I say, works really well throughout the week. And it's cool because this is a bite of, you get fresh, you get creamy, you get tangy, you get smoky, you get sweet, you get salty, like you get all of those things that we know soul food to have. And so it's kind of nice to see that literally all you have to do is reimagine how you see this food, and you can make freaking anything taste great. So I'm gonna head back over and answer questions if we still have time, because I haven't been able to really keep up with the chat as I'm managing the kitchen. So give me 1 second.
Oh, I know there were a couple of questions in the chat, and maybe you can address them. So for the barbecue jackfruit, can you substitute jackfruit for mushrooms?
Yes, you can. You can totally substitute it for mushrooms, and I would recommend specifically the stems of the oyster, like the oyster mushrooms that come all the way down. They do really well as a substitution.
Does anybody else have other questions?
Hey, I have a question, Chef Brandy. How I was cooking along with you.
Sweet.
Coming. It's coming. I'm done.
Oh, sweet.
Nice. It came out good. I was like, well, she going fast. So I have a question about the collard greens, because I have like a whole bunch of them here, and I saw that you did the whole blanching and then freezing and saving the technique. So when you're freezing it, how do I store it to, so that it comes out, I guess, flat the way that you blanched it?
Yeah, so you can dry it off and put it onto it depends. Do you plan on using them? If you plan on using them again as like a wrapping kind of thing, then I would recommend putting them on a cookie sheet, dry, like freezing them individually, and then put them into a bag. If you plan on using them just to like make collard greens, you could just stack them up at one time and put them into a bag. So it kind of depends on how you want to use them once you take them out of the freezer.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
I had a question, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I really enjoyed it, by the way. I've been very intimidated by jackfruit, so this is really helpful.
Sweet.
I was wondering, I noticed you put a bunch of spices in the jackfruit, and I didn't see it on the recipe, and I was trying to write it down. Do you mind running through that again?
Absolutely.
Before you added the barbecue sauce?
Yes. So I use smoked paprika, onion granules or onion powder, garlic powder, cayenne pepper.
Oh, cayenne pepper.
What is that thing behind that? Cayenne pepper, crushed pepper flakes.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of liquid smoke.
Right.
And sometimes I add cumin too. I didn't this time, but sometimes I do. So that's just another spice that goes really well in that.
Would it, because I have all those spices, I just don't have liquid smoke. Would it work without it?
Yes, it would. Because the smoked paprika still gives you that smoky note.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And would you also use canned barbecue sauce as a I don't know, what's the word? A quicker process? Not canned.
So absolutely, barbecue sauce from like a bottle works. It's just depending on how strict you are with the lifestyle. If you're trying to reduce your sugars and stuff like that, I wanted to give a lower sugar, low salt alternative, but a regular one from the jar works perfectly in this recipe.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Could you leave out the molasses?
you can. You totally can. So you can leave the molasses out and you can just keep the dates in. And if you wanted to still kind of get that little turn of brown from the bright tomato, use a little more balsamic vinegar.
Also, where do you get the vegan Worcestershire sauce?
So there are few companies that sell it. It's like 6 brands. I've always see it at Whole Foods. I don't know, and there's some places online as well. I know that the brand that comes to mind is Annie's. Oh, that's somebody just said Vitacost. That's good to know. Vitacost, which is a website, has it as well. And organics. And I know there are like 4 or 5 other brands that I've seen that are anchovy free. But you should be able to
Thank
find
you.
it. No problem.
Thank you.
Anybody else has questions?
Brandy, we had a question about protein and low carb wraps. And I think the collard wraps are a really great alternative for any type of more processed wrap. But would you like to say anything about these so-called low carb wraps that you can find in most supermarkets?
Yeah, I don't like how they taste. So that's just my personal opinion. I'm not a fan. And I guess I always, as I go through these processes, I think like, oh, I could share this. So I created this really fun wrap that you could make on your own with just a flour and a roasted sweet potato. And that's literally all it is. It's a roasted sweet potato and a cup of flour. And you literally bring it together the same way that you would as if you were like incorporating the butter into like the dough, or like there's enough moisture in the sweet potato to create it yourself. And you can create some really just tasty, simple wraps that way. So that's an alternative that I would give. And it's super fast. It's combining the 2 ingredients, rolling out the wrap, and then putting it into a pan. It's really simple.
Yeah. I would just also add that the whole food plant-based way of life is not a low carb diet, as long as the carbs are not overly processed. And if you think about, if something is labeled as low carb, then what remains? It's going to be high in protein or fat or both. And those are things we do want to keep relatively low in our diet. So actually, there are much better alternatives. And someone also asked about using romaine rather than the colors, and I think that's also a good choice. So it's not quite as hearty, might fall apart a little more. But
yeah, I would probably like double or triple that if you did it that way. Like it would totally work, but it like Lynn says, it doesn't have the stability of the collard green. So like double it up and it'll totally work. I do that a lot with the like chickpea tuna wrap. If I'm gonna make that one, I'll put use the romaine.
Yeah, and someone asked about how do you blanch the greens?
So it's literally you saw how I like cut the stems off. There's a pot of boiling water, nothing in it, just boil the water. A lot of people say when you blanch you need salt. You don't need salt, you just need heat. Put the green in it, and then once it turns from like that kind of green dusty flavor to like the kind of more bright vibrant green, that's how I decide that it's like how I realize, okay, it's ready to go. Pull it out of the boiling pot of water and immediately transfer it into a bowl of cold ice water. And some people say you need to let it sit for 30 minutes and hours. I've never waited longer than 5 minutes or so for it to kind of work. Like you could do all these things, but you don't necessarily need it to work that way. So that's the process: hot boiling water into cold bath water until it cools down and stop the cooking process.
Right. And someone wants to know, where do we get canned jackfruit?
So the most like economical, I want to say, canned jackfruit I found is at the Asian grocery store and also at Food Bazaar. Like funny enough, Food Bazaar in Brooklyn, you find jackfruit all the time, somewhere between like $1.50 and $1.99 a can. And Trader Joe's consistently has a canned jackfruit. I would recommend making sure that you go to, like, make sure it just has like jackfruit and water. And when you're purchasing it, and like always, if you get something from a can, just like rinse all of that gunky canned stuff off of it. But there's a company called the Jackfruit Company that makes a pouch. Now it's not as cheap, but it's you consistently get jackfruit and water. Now they have a couple like seasoned blends where like if it has like barbecue sauce in it, those all have oils and extra stuff added, but they have one that just says jackfruit and water in a pouch. That's another option if you can't find the can.
Right.
Awesome. So I also had a question for you, Chef Brandy. As far as you were cutting up the onions and the peppers, the scraps. So as far as I love heat, so as far as the jalapeno scraps that you had, would you throw that in there with your onions and everything? Will it give it that kick with
It will totally. You can throw it in. Like if you love heat, just put it all into the pan. But the thing about jalapenos and peppers in general is that you never know how hot they are, so you don't want to throw them all in at once. You kind of want to gradually introduce them to the dish.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Ayana, were you asking about the scraps for the broth or for this particular dish?
For the broth.
Oh yeah. So okay, yes. So if you use them for a broth, you can totally throw those in. And just if you are saving scraps for a broth, I would recommend only doing like peppers, carrots, onion skin, and celery. Like things like broccoli make it's a little weird to me. Like I think like broccoli scraps in the broth makes it a little weird. So if you stick with that, and then when you're ready to cook it down, add in a little bit of like some type of fresh herb, it really like brings it together nicely.
Thank you.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about how you make a vegetable broth from scratch?
Yeah. So it is literally a mix of your frozen, and this is because I save all of my pieces. If you don't save all of your pieces, say you don't save all of your pieces and you just want to make it from scratch, you would want to do carrots, onions, celery, garlic. That would be like the base. If you wanted to be spicy, you can throw in like a jalapeno or something like that. And then I will cook it down with a bay leaf. I don't put any seasoning in it. Everything kind of cooked down and then taste it at the end. And if I do anything added to it, it would just be onion powder and an herb. I like to do a bouquet, so to say. So it's usually a little thyme, a little rosemary, and a little parsley. And I just put it in and then just let it kind of boil down until the water turns from clear until like a brownish, like a more rich brown. The light brown one's cool, but if you let it boil maybe usually about 30 to 40 minutes, it ends up becoming this really nice like caramel color. And if you taste it, it'll have like a really nice flavor. No salt, no anything added, just a combination of the sweet carrot, the savory onion, the salty celery gets you something. And then those herbs is really nice.
And also then you don't have to carry home heavy boxes of boxed or canned
broth.
Yeah,
which is funny because at least I'm always surprised at the level of sodium that you find in those box things, but they don't have as much flavor as when you make it at home yourself. So that's why I like to save all the pieces, throw it in too, but also throw in some fresh pieces as well.
Yeah. Desiree, did you have another question?
No.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Chef Brandy. It was wonderful. Looks like the dish tastes great. Thank you very much. And thank you for the people who have joined us. And we invite you to some of our other plant-based nutrition events. And we're going to put that in the chat box so that you can register for them. One of them will be on March 2nd, which is Get Started with Whole Food Plant-Based Nutrition. And then another one would be a community screening on What the Health. And so we're going to put those in the chat. And thank you again for joining us.